Okay, so this is where we were when we ended our last lecture video, and so let us continue right forward from here. So now what we are going to do is we are going to take our input x of n. Remember, this x of n is the zero inserted BPSK stream. This this is our x of n. It is not the original BPSK symbol stream. It is the stream that we obtain after we insert zeros in between two samples. And that is our input to the convolution operation. And we are having three different systems. One is the rectangular, other is triangular pulse, and the third one is the square root raised cosine pulse. So I pass that input xn through each of these three systems, and now I'm going to show you what came out of the convolution operation. So let us take an example first for the rectangular pulses, and you will see that BPSK symbol stream, which was just +1 and -1, has now nicely been converted into rectangular pulses, and the width of this pulse, each individual pulse, is equal to a symbol duration. And so what was earlier just an impulse has now become a pulse. And these pulses are much more easier for an electronic circuit to synthesize. Uh, and so now here we are talking. This is something that can be implemented at a transmitter of a BPSK system. Um, Now, if you are having hard time understanding how the minus ones and ones, the impulses of this chart, they turned into, see, each of this impulse has become a pulse of one symbol duration, and that is what is giving us uh, this chart here. This is the output of the convolution operation, the the very first output. Now I pass the same input through the triangular pulse, and I get triangular pulses. So this is where the magic of convolution becomes very clear, that you can actually get the desired shape after you feed the sequence of BPSK symbols through this filter, through this system. Um, okay. What about the raised cosine pulse? Well, the output looks like this. Now here you will notice that it is very hard to distinguish the original minus ones and ones of the BPSK symbol um, from this diagram that we are looking at. And the reason is that uh, uh, there is a lot of inter-symbol interference that is happening, because we are letting this SRRC pulse to be spread over multiple symbol durations. Uh, so what to do about it? We have this SRRC pulse that we need to use for some reason that we haven't talked about yet. But what we have seen is that uh, because of that inter-symbol interference, uh, the symbols get messed up to some extent. It's almost as if you added the Gaussian noise to each transmitted symbol, except this Gaussian noise is coming from your own design. So you better actually improve your design so that you don't end up introducing this extra Gaussian noise. Uh, so how to do that? And so toward that, let us consider that the uh, the actual input to the receiver, which is our output of the uh, transmitter, and here I am assuming that the channel does not introduce any noise whatsoever. So this Y of n actually directly goes to the receiver. Suppose if receiver again sends this y of n through the same system with HSRRC and gets the z of n, which is HSRRC convolved with y of n. Now remember, y of n was convolution of HSRRC with x of n. And so z of n is going to be double convolution of HSRRC with itself and then with this x of n. Now it turns out that if you take HSRRC and convolve with itself, what you get is a raised cosine pulse. Notice the difference in the terminology. This is square root raised cosine pulse. This was the pulse that we used at the transmitter side. And here this what we are looking at is raised cosine without the square root terminology. And now if I plot this HRC, this is how it looks like. This is the raised cosine pulse. And you will notice that for the raised cosine pulse, magically at the adjacent symbols -1, -2, +1, +2, the pulse has almost zero value. Actually, it has exactly zero value in the ideal case. Here in my simulation, I made some simplifications, and so maybe it is not exactly zero, but it is pretty close to zero. Whereas it was definitely not zero for the HSRRC as we saw over here. Over here it was not close to zero, whereas you can see that this HRC, as I have shown by these arrows, has almost zero level of the pulse at the location of adjacent symbols, which has this integer valued x-axis locations. And so now magically this z of n is free of this intersymbol interference. Okay, so this is a little bit of a deviation from our topic of convolution, but it still brings about an important design criteria or design condition for a communication system, that maybe you can introduce intersymbol interference at the transmitter side, but if at the receiver side, if you can get rid of it by this some scheme such as what is shown here, it is still okay. Finally, what is the reason why we use the word square root? Remember, this is square root raised cosine and this is just simple raised cosine. What is the reason for doing that? That is something that we will discuss later on as we move along. Okay, so that is one particular application. Essentially, what we looked at was the operation of pulse shaping that is required at the communication transmitter. And it is generalized to the operation of interpolation that is used in many other applications besides the communication transmitter. Now we are going to look at one more application, another application actually. And here I'm going to just play some audio files for you. The first file is going to be the tweet of a bird. Now in today's world, that tweet is commonly understood as having some other meanings, some text that we post on social network with certain character limit of 140 or so. This is not what the original word refers to. The original word obviously refers to the tweeting of a bird, and so here is an audio file that has this bird tweeting. Okay, so let me play that. Okay, sorry, the video. There's some issue with my audio player. We'll give it one more shot. If it doesn't work out, we'll Hopefully you are able to hear. I can hear it. The volume is still pretty low, but I, the video has picked it up. So this is the original tweet. If you couldn't hear it, I'll play it one more time here. Okay, now suppose that that audio got corrupted by a lot of noise, and so this is how it sounds like after we bombard it with a ton of noise. You can see it doesn't seem like the tweeting of a bird at all. Now it turns out that if you take this audio signal, which is very noisy, and if you pass it through a system which essentially performs the convolution operation, you get back the original tweet, the audio file, or the audio of the original tweet. And so this is again a very dramatic application of the convolution operation. You can see that uh, something that was highly noisy, which was this audio file at the middle, has been cleaned up very nicely by doing this convolution operation. Why has that happened? Again, we'll take it up later on. Okay, now the third and the last application of convolution here is we are going to spend a little more time, and this is going to segue into multiple other topics. That relates to multiplying two polynomials. So we are going to make up some two polynomials in the variable z. One is p of z, which is p0 plus p1z plus p2z square, so on. It's an nth order polynomial. The other one is q of z, and this is an mth order polynomial. It turns out that if you want to multiply these two polynomials, p of z times q of z, obviously you will get another polynomial r of z, and the order of this polynomial will be n plus m. Okay, and this polynomial will have its own coefficients r0, r1, r2, and so on. It turns out that these coefficients r0, r1, r2, they can be computed by convolving the coefficients of p of z and q of z. So if you define p of n as the coefficients of the first polynomial, q of n as the coefficients of the second polynomial, and r of n as another discrete time sequence which is formed by the coefficients of the third polynomial, turns out that r of n is nothing but p of n times q of n. P of n convolved with q of n. So whenever you do polynomial multiplication, actually you are doing convolution. When did you have to do polynomial multiplication? Starting maybe from your 8th grade or 9th grade math class, where you had to do, let's say, ax plus by plus cz, where a, b, and c are the coefficients, x, y, and z are the variables. You take that and square it. That is essentially you are multiplying two polynomials, or you raise it to the third power, and so on. And you had a complicated looking expressions for all such polynomial multiplications. The coefficients of those multiplied polynomials you could actually directly get using this convolution operation. So that is actually what we have all been doing starting from our high school math. But it is not just only high school math. In fact, we have been doing convolution starting from our elementary school, in fact, without maybe realizing it entirely. And the reason is because suppose if you consider a decimal number such as 123, it is actually a polynomial given as this, where z is equal to 10. the reason it is called a decimal number is because the the variable of this polynomial is 10, and that is the reason why it's called decimal number. It's essentially a polynomial, and this 1 2 3 here just denote the coefficients of this polynomial. Sorry, by the way, this should be 3, not 1. Okay, so now suppose if you have two such numbers, 123 and 113, uh, and when we multiply these two numbers using some multiplication technique that we would have learned in our elementary school, actually we are convolving P of n with Q of n. If you don't believe me, you just try it out uh, using a pencil and paper and see how you are actually multiplying these two numbers. You will use the this technique of multiplying two numbers that you would have learned way back, maybe 10 years back. Um, but that process is actually you are doing the convolution, the kind of operation that we saw using that Georgia Tech demo. There's a slight caveat though that in the actual multiplication you may have to be careful about carry forward digits, uh, but otherwise it is exactly the process of convolution. As a demonstration, I took a snapshot of my MATLAB console where I declared two vectors. P of n is this vector 1, 2 and 3. Q of n is another vector 1, 1, 3. And I use MATLAB's command for convolution. For convolving P of n with Q of n, I got R of n as 13899. Now you can do this on your calculator, you can do this on a piece of paper. I just did it in MATLAB directly because MATLAB is essentially a calculator. I multiplied these two numbers, I got 13899, same as this R of n. So this is kind of a proof that actually when we multiply two numbers, we are doing convolution. Okay, so let us stop here for the time being and let us see why this theoretical application of convolution, why it is important for us as we consider the application into a communication systems.